What happens when this man uses his iPhone in a lion enclosure to impress his girlfriend? There are horrifying consequences. Mr. Iriskulov, 44, worked at a zoo in Parkent in Uzbekistan. He had a new girlfriend and had told her about his job. She wasn't too impressed and thought it was just another ordinary job. So that is why he decided to go to work early, because he had a very important mission in mind. He wanted to impress his girlfriend with his work amongst the lions. So he arrived at the lion enclosure at 5 in the morning. The zoo had opened in 2019 and had 10 African lions and 5 cubs living there. What happened next was all captured on his phone on video. The horrific encounter that unfolded shocked all those who saw what happened to him. Entering the lion enclosure, he had his phone on video mode and was filming himself opening the padlock to the enclosure. With his phone in one hand, he started recording everything as he went inside. The lions noticed he was there, but they remained calm and uninterested and continued to stay in the corner, laying down. This wasn't very interesting to film, so he walked towards the animals and started waving and shouting at them. Even then, they did not get up and were quite happy to remain where they were. That was until the keeper started to get closer to them. Suddenly, they all jumped up at once and looked in his direction. When this happened, it startled Mr. Iriskulov, and he quickly jumped back towards the entrance. They did not attempt to attack him. They just wanted the keeper to go away. The keeper took the actions of the lions as a signal to carry on what he was doing. But he was still shouting at the lions to get their attention again. So by now, the animals had had enough and became very agitated. All the while that this was going on, the keeper was still filming on his phone. He turned the camera to himself and then back towards the lions. After all, this was for the benefit of his girlfriend. When the footage was later recovered, it showed that the lions were by now walking very fast in the enclosure and were showing clear signs of being agitated. And to make matters worse, he started to stroke the nearest lion to him on its mane. This, it seems, is what became the last straw for the animals. And then the camera showed the last horrifying moments of Mr. Iriskulov being attacked. One of the lions had jumped up to him and grabbed his arm in its mouth. This is when the phone is dropped to the ground. There was no more footage recorded and the video goes dark. But the sound was still recording, and the horrifying yells of Mr. Iriskulov could be heard screaming in agony as he was being attacked over and over again. For those who heard it later, they said it was like listening to a horror movie, as it was apparent that he was being eaten alive by the lions. A minute later, the phone stopped recording completely, including the sound. In the next few hours, the early morning was quiet and still, as the lions were content again. It was only when the other workers arrived later that morning that Mr. Iriskulov was discovered in the lion enclosure. He was laying on the ground, motionless and covered in blood. Parts of his body had been ripped away and eaten by the lions. The animals were loose in the park and had to be rounded up. The staff managed to capture 2 of the lions quite easily and incapacitate them with tranquilizer guns. The third lion was more aggressive and was acting crazy, so it had to be shot with a high-powered rifle. The manager had called the authorities, who arrived very quickly. When they were able to get into the enclosure safely, they approached Mr. Iriskulov, but nothing could be done to save the life of the keeper.